also, too, please try to keep your phones on mute as we go through this so as not to get any kind of disturbance over the line. As everybody knows, the holidays is already a stressful enough time for just your work in general, let alone having to deal with the ups and downs on payroll. So today, I just want to go over a couple of pointers to help you out through the holiday season when it comes to processing your payroll. So here are a few important things to remember. We'll start off with a couple of dates that are pretty obvious. Thanksgiving, which is right now 2 weeks away. Partners is actually closed the Friday after Thanksgiving, as many businesses are. It's important for you to plan accordingly when it comes to the Thanksgiving holiday, any holiday in general. If you need to submit payroll hours or distribute checks before Thanksgiving, you really want to look at your dates when you're off and try to give yourself plenty of time. Partners always recommend 48 hours before a pay date to try to have your payroll ready to be processed. Christmas falls on a Friday this year, so this will be very similar to Thanksgiving in that it's a situation where you need to plan accordingly for the hours that you're going to be paying your employees for. Any holiday or year-end bonus checks that you may have, again, try to plan your pay dates appropriately. It's always a good idea to run those bonuses as soon as you can, but obviously for internal reasons you may not be able to do that. Make sure you notify partners and be specific on your desires for the payroll. If you want it to be a paper check or if you want it to be direct deposit, if you intend for the checks to be net pay, which is to say you want the employee to earn $2,000 on his check, then you need to let us know that as well. Notify partners on employees' information change. This is a big one that people forget about as the holiday season goes on. It's very important because immediately after we get done with Christmas, we're preparing for W-2s to go out, and everyone knows that that means the signal of the start of the tax season and everyone getting their tax returns filed. So it's important for us to make sure that you have the correct information for your employees. That way, when we send the W-2s out, they go to the correct address. So it's a nice time to do a quick little audit for your employees just to make sure, maybe if you have a form or something that you might be able to provide for them so that they can fill that out if they have an address change. In closing, now's a good time to review your holiday calendar. Go over that with all your employees and ensure that you have proper coverage and avoid miscommunication about what individuals will be on vacation, what individuals will be working, and what the office policy will be. I hope these have been some helpful tips, and I hope everybody enjoys this upcoming holiday season. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean. If you have any questions about the payroll processing pointers that Sean's been bringing to you over the last several months, you can contact Sean at 405-917-1020 or sowens@partners-hr.com. We're going to move on to our next topic, which is our Safety Minute. That will be brought to you by Ron Wofford. He is with our Director of Risk Management here at Partners Human Resources. Ron?
Today we're going to talk about eye safety and how to protect your eyes. There's no excuse for not wearing your protective equipment, safety glasses. We work in such a diverse climate and stuff, inside work. Not necessarily in the office would you see a lot of people wearing safety glasses. But when you get to the construction trades or people working outside in a warehouse, out in the windy conditions as it is in Oklahoma most of the time, every year thousands of people are blinded from work-related injuries due to their eyes. Small particles can damage your eyes, caused by grinding, chiseling, sanding, hammering, or spraying. Particles become airborne and lodge themselves into your eye. Can cause blurred vision, sensitivity to light, and severe bleeding. If you cannot get it out from blinking, go to a doctor. You can also, your first aid kit should have an eye wash station or eye drops. You need to flood that, or if you can get your eye in a bathroom sink underneath a faucet, flush it for about 10 to 15 minutes with just cool water. That will a lot of times help get the debris out. If your cornea gets scratched, you may need to seek medical attention to get some drops that will help that heal faster. Protect your eyes with safety glasses. Regular glasses should not be substituted for protective eyewear because they won't handle the impact resistance that safety glasses do. Ensure your glasses fit properly. A lot of times if it's hot outside and you sweat, if you have a heavy pair of glasses, safety glasses with prescription lenses can cause them to slide down your nose and away from your ears. You may need to wear some type of a head device that hooks onto your earpieces to hold those snug to your head while you're doing your work. You should have your own pair of safety glasses. When I go out to my construction trades, I always tell them a good way to store those after work is to keep an old tube sock that maybe you had to throw the other side away because it had a hole in the toe, but those tube socks make good storage containers for those safety glasses. You slide them right down in there, put them in your hard hat, keep them in the back seat of your car, vehicle, or truck. Also, TVs, monitors, computer monitors, and any type of media devices and people on cell phones these days can also put added stress on your eyes. So you may need to limit those activities. If you see yourself squinting to be able to read that, or if you need the assistance of reading glasses to be able to read that, media on your computer screen, you may need to make a trip to your local eye doctor and have an exam done and see if maybe you need prescription glasses. Take care of your eyes. We only get one pair to start with, and we try to make them last our whole lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. We appreciate that. That's good advice on safety for the eyes. And we're going to be moving through our agenda now, and we're going to be joining Kyle Killingsworth. Kyle is a certified human resource specialist. He has two of the top credentials in the United States. He's here with Partners Human Resources. He's going to be talking about success in difficult conversations. And I'm going to turn it over to Kyle.
Thanks, Ronnie, and I appreciate the words and reminders from Sean and Ron as well. Again, if you have any questions for them, don't hesitate to reach out to Partners. That is, the service that we offer is to provide expertise and help with clients. I'll also ask as we begin to work through this presentation, and if you do have questions, don't forget the chat box. You're welcome to send those to us, and we'll cover those as we receive them. In all of us in business, from time to time, are faced with a difficult conversation that needs to be had. We call these critical conversations. We call them crucial conversations. They are just difficult for many of us to have, and the reason they're difficult is we don't have the confidence in our skill set to be successful. So what we're going to look at today is first how to identify a crucial conversation, and then secondly, how do we stay in dialogue? Meaning some individuals' responses are either fight or flight. They become negative and push back on you, and some verbal violence, or depending on the personality and the relationship, some individuals run to silence and they just clam up. So we're going to talk about some skills on how to stay in that dialogue mitigate the opportunity for them to run to silence or violence. And then the key thing that we're going to talk about today, and the question that we're going to ask ourselves is, what is it that we really want out of this conversation? That can change the way that we address it and approach it with others. This presentation is based on a Crucial Conversation book. You can see that picture of the book there. It's Tools for Talking When Stakes Are High. It's a very interesting background on this book. I'm going to take a minute because a lot of times it helps us better understand where things come from and the background associated with those. As you can see, this was a New York Times bestseller for a number of years. There's over 2 million copies that have been printed. You can see there's 4 authors, and these 4 authors did not set out to write a book. They were consultants for an international consulting firm, and this firm got a contract from a multinational corporation, and the contract was simply this: to follow those influencers around the organization to see what made them successful. And they actually spent thousands of hours following leaders and influencers around in multiple environments in multiple countries to see what made them successful. These were the people that when they spoke, people paid attention. And when the 4 consultants got back together and they looked at all their notes, put all their data up on the table, they found one common denominator among all those leaders and influencers that were successful. And that was they could handle a crucial conversation. And so that began the series of books entitled Crucial Conversations and Crucial Accountability. What we find in a crucial conversation are 3 elements. Many times you have high stakes. There's a lot at stake with this conversation. Maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's a promotion, maybe it's an interview, maybe it's a termination. There's a lot of situations where there's high stakes. And then there also is the opposing view, in that everyone is probably not on the same page. We are not in agreement on this topic. We are not in agreement around what we're about to discuss. And then the third element are strong emotions. Many of us are passionate about our work. Sometimes individuals take it a little more personal than they should, but there's emotions involved. So the 3 elements are high stakes, opposing opinions or opposing views, and strong emotions. That's what makes up that crucial conversation. So when we're faced with a crucial conversation, there's basically 3 ways to handle it. The first way is to avoid it. And that seems to be, in my practice, the most common one. We all have a crucial conversation or 2 that we've been needing to have. In fact, we've probably been needing to have it for a while, and we've just been avoiding it. We avoid it for a variety of reasons. A lot of it's around, again, unsure of the response. We're unsure of the response of the individual we're going to be engaging in this conversation. Another reason we avoid it is we don't have, as I mentioned before, we don't have the confidence in our communication skill set to be successful. So we avoid it. The second option is we face it and we handle it poorly. We've all been in situations where we've stuck our foot in our mouth, that foot and mouth disease, where we've just said exactly the wrong thing at exactly the wrong time, and it's not handled properly. The third option, obviously, is not to avoid it, but to face it and be able to handle it well. And that's the skill set that we're going to focus on through the rest of this presentation, is about how to handle this well. Again, I've covered some of these as why we do poorly. Our emotions get involved. We may run to silence. We may run to violence. We're caught off guard. We may not be prepared. And so we just speak in self-defeating ways and ultimately make things much worse. So many times a crucial conversation is what I just call a do-over. We get another opportunity, and you're probably thinking now of some crucial conversations that, one, you've either been avoiding and probably need to have, or number two, that didn't go so well and you'd like a do-over on that. Those are the conversations that I hope you can focus on, and how to work on a skill set that will allow you to be successful on those ones you've been avoiding or the ones that you've had a stab at and would like another opportunity. So we're going to go through a few problems and solutions around these crucial conversations, these critical conversations. The first problem is, the first thing that begins to deteriorate during a crucial conversation is not our behavior, but it's our motive. That goes back to the question we'll focus on, what is it that we really want? Because whatever our intent is, whatever our motive is, that's going to be reflected in our behavior. Learn how to stay focused on what you really want and get better results. Let's talk about that just a little bit more. Sometimes we just need to restart our brain. We're stumbling in a conversation. We're getting maybe run into silence. We're running into violence. We don't know how to respond. We're confused because we got blindsided. We didn't expect this to come up. Whatever the circumstances are, if you can have the self-awareness to ask yourself that, what am I behaving like I want, and what is it that I really, really want? Not just for yourself, but for others in the conversation. What would you want around this relationship of the person you're in the conversation with, or even for the organization, the company, or the department? So if you can focus on what is it that I really want, that changes your behavior because your motive has changed, and thus that influences the tone in your voice. It influences your body language and the tone and texture of that conversation, because your behavior would have changed. And that will go further in assisting during a crucial conversation. Let's look at another situation. The problem is, when it matters most, our emotions kick in and we often do our worst. And we feel like we're doing the right thing. Learn how to create emotions that make you return to healthy dialogue. What happens during a crucial conversation many times is we get distracted, and we're not talking about the conversation that we really, really need to be having. So it's about focusing back into that dialogue that we need to have, and to create those emotions, that intent. Again, our emotions are going to be seen. Our emotions are going to be heard in our tone of our voice, also in our body language. When you've probably seen communication models before, and there's three elements, just to remind you, there's three elements in any face-to-face conversation. The first element are the words, the content. The second element that we've mentioned already is the tone. And the third element is body language. And when we engage in a crucial conversation or any face-to-face conversation, we naturally pick up on people's tone and their body language. In fact, that is the primary way that communication is expressed in a face-to-face conversation. About 55% of the communication that's being had in that moment is through body language, over 50%. Almost 40% is how you interpret their tone, the inflection in their voice. And less than 10% are the actual words. So we're looking and listening to body language and listening to tone in order to understand what it is that they're really intending to do. Follow me for just a minute. I call this our path to action, and it's an interesting process that we go through, how we create stories in our minds. First step is we see something, we hear something, we make an observation. Then we begin to interpret what is going on. What is that person's intent? And we tell ourselves a story around that situation. about what we just saw, what we just heard, or what we're observing. That story then drives some emotions. It drives feelings. And then, based on those feelings, we act. We act. Let me give you an example of this. Let's say that you're the leader of a project team. One of your team members comes to you one afternoon and expresses some concerns about the way the project is going. You just made that observation. You saw and you heard what they said. That's step one. Then you begin to tell yourself a story. And you may have some thoughts like, well, did the boss send them over here? Did they have a meeting without me and everybody expressed these concerns? Are they just trying to ruin my Friday afternoon before the weekend? We begin to tell ourselves a story. And then what happens is, if we convinced ourselves that the boss sent them over here, then it drives some feelings. That drives some emotions in us. It may make us a bit angry. It may cause us to drive other emotions. And then based on those emotions, that anger, we might bite back at that person, verbally bite back at that person through our actions is step 4. And if you think about that process, that's what we do most of the time, because we're trying to sort through not what they're saying, but what their intent is. What is their motive? Why are they coming over here? Why are they addressing this issue with me right now? And we all do that. And not only are you doing that, but the person that you're considering having that crucial conversation with is going to be doing the exact same thing. So there's some skills that we can learn in order to stop them from telling themselves that silly story. We'll explain our intent up front so they'll know what our intentions are, and they won't be telling themselves or making stories up about why they think you're in front of them today having this conversation. And if you think about that, if you look at those 4 steps, it doesn't take us very long. In fact, it only takes us a few seconds to make an observation, tell ourselves a story, which starts some emotion, and then we open our mouths and insert our foot with our behavior and our acts. And the reason it only takes us a few seconds to do that is because we're really, really good at it. And the reason we're really, really good at it is because we've practiced it thousands and thousands and thousands of times. That's what we do. That's the way that we're built. That's the way that we respond. So the way to short circuit that is stop telling yourselves a story. And we'll learn some skills in how to do that. Another problem is we say exactly the wrong thing in the wrong way. So how do we counter this issue? Well, we're going to learn 5 skills beginning now so that we can say risky things in that crucial conversation in a way that will minimize defensiveness, And if you can see, the acronym that we're going to use is STATE, S-T-A-T-E. I call these STATE skills. These are your STATE skills. You start by sharing the facts. Then you tell the story. You tell your story, because facts don't always connect all the dots. This is the time when you make an analysis and share what your thoughts are around those facts. And then you ask for their path. You ask them for their opinion. So those are the 3 steps. That is what we do during a crucial conversation. You start with sharing facts. Then you draw your conclusion. You tell your story through your analysis about the facts. And then you ask them and check with them about what they think and what their opinion is. How do we do that? That's what we do. How do we do that? Well, that's the T and the E in STATE. We're going to talk tentatively, meaning we're not going to talk in absolutes, and we're going to encourage testing. That's the ask part. We want to ask. So, because the purpose of a crucial conversation, as we'll see in a minute, is not to prevail. It's not to compel somebody to see your line of sight or your view or your opinion. the purpose of a crucial conversation is to gather as much data as you can. If you can gather as much data as we can, as we all know, much of our role and much of our job is problem solving. And we are pretty good at brainstorming and problem solving. In fact, if we can get the data up on top of the table and get it out in the open, we're all pretty good at sorting out some options. In fact, we pride ourselves in solving problems and coming up with solutions and options and recommendations for others. That's what we like to do. The challenge is getting all the data on top of the table. So we want to fill up that data pool. And both individuals in that crucial conversation have an opportunity to fill up that data pool. That's why we want to ask and encourage testing. Let's go back to facts as we walk through each one of these steps, these skills that we're learning. The benefits from starting the facts, well, they're a lot less insulting because, as we know, facts are simply that. They're facts. There's not a lot of challenging to do most of the time if you have the right facts. We're not trying to persuade somebody. We're just laying it out here. We're just laying it out here. We need to get the facts out first before we go to our stories, because that can often be confused. So we want to start out with the facts, and then we want to tell our story. Based on these facts, this leads me to conclude that, or it makes me believe that, or another good starting line was, I start to think that, and you finish that thought. You finish that thought, that conversation around the facts that you've presented to them. The next step is then you're going to ask them. We're going to be humble about it because we want them to share their ideas. We want to share their side of the story. Again, we're trying to fill the pool. We're trying to fill the pool with all the information, all the data that we can, so that we can make a good, informed decision or come up with some solutions and options for individuals. And again, in order to fill that pool, we need their input. We need his or her input in order to fill that pool up of data and information. So we're going to ask them to share. We're going to ask them to share. How do we do those 3 steps? Well, we do that by talking tentatively. Our story is not an absolute. Our story is not a fact. When we get to tell your story, we tell it as a story. It leads me to believe. I start to think, could it be that? You put that in more of a question type of form. And again, allow them to tell their side. Allow them to tell their story, whatever the circumstances may be. And again, we want to avoid those absolutes, those never, those always words. Avoid those absolutes would help us structure a tentative talk and keep them engaged in the dialogue. And then we want to encourage testing. Remember our purpose. The purpose of a crucial conversation is not to win. The purpose of a crucial conversation is to get as much meaning, information, and data into that pool of shared knowledge. We want to put it all out on the table, and we need them to help us because they probably have some information that's going to be helpful in forming a solution in whatever the goal may be. So that last bullet talks about the goal. If your goal is to convince, compel, or control, you may do a good job in speaking your mind, but you're not giving them an opportunity to share. And that's the purpose of that crucial conversation, is to get them talking, keep them engaged in that. I'm going to pause now before I go on to some other skills to see if anyone on the phone may have a question regarding those STATE skills. Again, the acronym STATE, S-T-A-T-E. The first 3 is what we do. We share the facts. Then we tell our story, our conclusion, and then we ask. And you can do that in any crucial conversation. You can walk through those 3 steps easily in less than a minute. This is not a 3-4 page document that you're going to be reading to someone. You simply say that in less than a minute, and you close with the ask question. How do you see it? Am I missing something? Is that the case? In other words, you're asking them an open-ended question, not a yes or no question. So you ask them an open-ended question, which provides them an opportunity to be engaged, share information, and fill up that pool of needing. And we do that by talking tentatively and encourage testing. I don't see that we have any questions. I'm going to go through a list here of some skills, some additional skills that can assist you as you begin to prepare and think through that crucial conversation that you've been needing to have, or maybe that one that you need like a do-over on. We first need to stay focused. As I mentioned before, at times we get distracted and we wander off the topic and don't get that conversation fully vented out. In other words, we don't get all the information up on top of the table. So we want to identify the right problem to hold to around that conversation. So we want to be focused on the topic and not be wandering around. Don't try and sugarcoat things. Don't try and sugarcoat things. We all have been in circumstances where we have been given some news, probably not some good news that may have been difficult to handle, and we'd rather just have that straight on than be sugarcoated. Again, as I said before, and what's underlined on the page on line 2, focus on what you really, really want, because otherwise your motives will be degraded. You will degrade your motives. Let me give you an example of how self-awareness can help you during a conversation. It was right out a year ago, and I was driving from Oklahoma City up to Tulsa, up the Turnpike early one morning. I had a client appointment in Tulsa, and I remember it was a Thursday morning, and I got about halfway up there, and my phone rang, and it was my fiance, and she said, "Hey, I just got a text from the girls, and they've got an extra ticket to the concert tomorrow night, and I was thinking about going to the concert. What do you think?" Well, what went through my mind was, well, tomorrow night's Friday night, and she knows that's date night. That's our date night. Why would she be wanting to go to the concert? Why would she even be asking me this question? So the silly story I told myself was, she'd rather go to the concert with the girls than go to date night with me. Well, with that in my head, with that thought controlling me, I then bit back at her a little bit and sternly reminded her that tomorrow night was our date night. It was not concert night. And she heard the tone and inflection in my voice, and she bit back at me just a little bit with, well, what's wrong with that? Can't we do something? Can't you be flexible? And all of a sudden, we were kind of into it. And it was all because I couldn't focus on what I really, really wanted. I was fortunate enough to have the self-awareness to ask myself that question in the middle of that conversation. That is a difficult skill to learn because our emotions tend to carry us away, and we get swept away, and we're biting back at each other before we know it. I had the self-awareness to ask myself, Kyle, what is it that you really, really want? And the answer came to me very quickly. I want a long time, loving, lasting relationship with my fiance. And once I've had that thought in my head, my intent was not to bite back. My intent was not to prevail about where we're going tomorrow, where she's going tomorrow night, or who she's going with. My intent was to further our relationship in a loving way. Guess what happened to the tone in my voice? Guess what happened to the volume in my voice? My voice softened. My tone was dramatically changed. And it was more loving, more kind. What do you think happened to her voice when she heard the inflections in my tone? I think you know the answer to that. Her tone changed. And suddenly, we were having a good conversation a kind conversation rather than that biting conversation that we had a few seconds ago. And the reason that changed was because I stopped and thought to myself, what is it that you really, really want? And when my motive changed, my intent changed, then my behavior changed. And she sensed that in the tone of my voice and in the volume of my voice. So it was very real. If you can develop that skill of what is it that you really, really want in the middle of that battle, so to say, it will change the results that you have. The third bullet point, we've talked about emotions. That's one of the elements of a crucial conversation. High stakes, opposing views, and strong emotions. So we've got to control those emotions. We need to ask ourselves, what is it that we really, really want? And again, the purpose is not to prevail. We can speak persuasively without being abrasive. We're not trying to put anybody's ideas down. We're not trying to put anybody's actions or beliefs down. Again, the purpose of the conversation is to gather all the data that we can so that we can make a good decision together and come up with a solution to whatever those barriers were. Obviously, if you have that mindset, it's going to foster better teamwork. If you're able to practice these skills, you're going to make better decisions because you're going to have more information. The more information, the more data that you have, the better conclusion, the better solutions, the better decisions that you could make. We want to build acceptance. We want to be open to that individual. We don't want them to be resistant, and the reason they would be resistant is because we're being resistant. If we're not open to their ideas, if we're not open to their feelings, if we're not open to their thoughts, then they're going to be resistant, and they could run to silence or violence. A couple other skills that you may want to consider is watch for signs that safety is at risk. In our conversations, we look and long to be safe in conversations. In other words, think about your BFF. Think about your buddy. Think about your partner, someone that you trust totally. If you have that person in your mind's eye, isn't it true that you can talk to that individual about almost anything? And most of us can with our best bud. And the reason that is because we feel safe. We trust them and we long for that safety. So when safety is at risk, we need to be aware of that. Watch their body language. Watch their tone. Are they looking you in the eye? Are they folding their arms? Are they rolling their eyes? What about their breathing? Notice when they are running to silence and violence so that you can then step in to help that dialogue, because they may be defensive. They may feel hurt. They may be afraid or scared. And you can assure them the purpose of your conversation and what your motive and what your intent is. It's best to do that up front, because what we're really looking for in this are results. We're just not looking for words. We're just not practicing these skills to get words out of our mouth. We're not learning about these skills just to have content. We're trying to get results. In other words, we're trying to solve the issue, that issue that maybe we've been avoiding, that decision that maybe we didn't make a good call the first time, and we need to go back and talk to someone about another alternate solution. So that's the real purpose of a crucial conversation, is getting at those results. And the way that we do that is by getting all the information that we possibly can. That's going to lead to better decisions, which is going to lead to better results. Any questions that I can help you with at this time? I'd be happy to talk to anybody more about this Crucial Conversations training. There's a long version of this that I've rolled out to numerous other organizations. And if you'd like a copy, you're welcome to send me a note at kKillingsworth@partners-hr.com. Ronnie, if there doesn't appear to be any questions, I'll turn it back over to you for closure.
All right. Thank you, Kyle. I do want to remind people, and Kyle, I think you've got a way to capture some email addresses, and we've got a few phone numbers that people dialed in on the audio bridge. We're giving away a chance to win 3 $25 gift certificates, so 3 people will be winners today, and we'll draw those at random. But if you can make sure that you've got email addresses for me, Kyle, I'll get those drawn, and we'll notify the individuals through email or phone call, or deliver them through the mail or personal delivery. Upcoming at Partners University, we have another session of this, so if you have some friends that could benefit from this, Success in Difficult Conversations, we have another webinar on Thursday, November the 12th at 3 p.m. And then in our December Partners University, we have a couple of days in the first week or two, and it's performance planning and management. You'll also have our payroll processing pointer and our safety minute. And you can, if you need any information from us, be sure and call us at Partners, and we are at 405-917-1020. You can always look us up on the web, and that's where we're going to post the webinars. You can go back and review from our different series, and that'll be up probably the end of the week or early next week at www.partnershr.com. Kyle, if you'll let me know that you've gotten all those email addresses or at least phone number, I'll turn it over for any questions, and if I don't hear any, we'll call it a day. Any questions out there? Kyle, do you have any on your chat session?
No, I don't have any, and I'll get those the contact information to you, Ronnie.
All right, I appreciate it. Thanks everybody for joining Partners University. Have a great week.